Nigeria's Inspector General of Police has assured kidnapped victims currently being held hostage of effort to secure their release. The IGP gave this assurance while handing over some of the recently rescued medical students from Benue State, north central Nigeria, to their parents and guidance. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu tells us more.
These are the recently rescued Catholic medical students from the University of Jos and Maiduguri whose rescue were effected from kidnappers in Otrupo, Benue State. It took the synergy of police, local hunters, and the Benue State government for the rescue effort to be successful.
Usually the unsung heroes in this kind of transaction, the people who gave information on the ground, our community who were part and parcel of this operation. My governor sent me here with a message, first to the police. He has said, Governor Ali is a spiritual person. It is no surprise that this miracle happened in Benue.
Because it was not easy for the communication for us to even, from time to time, convince them that indeed the security agencies are at work and assure them that by the grace of God, the security agencies are going to bring back these students unhurt.
Yeah, my message to those who are still in captivity and to their family members is that they should not lose hope. If we can achieve this, then we can resolve all other kidnap cases that are still pending. Those that are still in captivity of kidnappers, there is hope that they will soon be rescued. We are already at the turning point. Things are going to turn for better from now on. You know, when you want to determine the turning point in your graph, for those who study mathematics, and I'm sure everybody must have offered the subject mathematics in school. If you want to find the turning point of a graph, you can easily find it by just differentiating the equation. You find where dy dx is 0, then that is where the turning point is.
The university authorities also assured that the students will be given every support necessary to help them seamlessly back into the society. In Abuja for News Central, I'm Emmanuel Bagudu.
And on security matters, troops of the 1 Division Nigerian Army, Kaduna, have killed a terrorist and recovered a cache of arms and ammunition during a clearance operation in the state. The acting deputy director of the Army Public Relations, Lieutenant Colonel Musa Yahya, in a statement in Kaduna on Monday, said the operation was conducted in the general areas of Sabon Birni, Dongandawa, Maidora, Ngedi Alpha, and Rafin Kaji on Sunday. He said during the operation, troops made contact with terrorist elements, leading to a firefight that resulted in the killing of one terrorist, while others fled with suspected gunshot injuries. He adds that the troops recovered 4 AK-47 magazines, a PKC belt with 86 rounds of ammunition, 2 motorcycles, a Techno mobile phone, and a Huawei handheld radio. Let's tell you that the operatives of Katsina State Police Command have neutralized 2 kidnappers and stopped 2 bandit attacks and freed 5 abducted victims. And this was disclosed by the command spokesperson, Abubakar Sadiq, in a press statement made on Monday. Sadiq stated that the command received a distress call on Sunday about a bandit attack on Lion Minister Village, Malumfashi local government area of the state, and the police boss said all the kidnapped victims were successfully rescued unhurt as the assailants succumbed to the superior firepower of the operatives and fled the scene with varying degrees of bullet injuries. The Foreign Press Association Africa has condemned the unlawful detention of journalist Adejuwon Soyinka by Nigeria's State Security Services, DSS. Soyinka was detained for 6 hours on Sunday by the DSS when he landed at the Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos on a flight from the UK. He was later released, but his passport was withheld. In a press release issued on August 26, 2024, the FPAA said the arrest and detention of Soyinka without probable cause is a direct attack on the very principles of democracy. The association further denounced what it described as a flagrant violation of press freedom and the rights of journalists. It demanded the immediate return of Soyinka's passport, an apology to him, and an end to any further harassment disguised as further questioning. And let's tell you that Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu is set to officially inaugurate the upgraded West Africa Container Terminal in Onne, Rivers State next week, Wednesday. Now, the terminal operator in a statement said the unprecedented upgrade project valued at $115 million, approximately 178.2 billion naira, commenced at WACT in 2021. It adds that the terminal operated by APM Terminals in Onne, Rivers State is Nigeria's largest and most efficient container terminal outside Lagos State. The managing director of WACT, Jethu Jose, remarked that the completion of the upgrade marks a significant milestone in the history of Nigerian port. According to Jose, the fresh investments of $115 million is a further testament to the trust and confidence that APMT has in the Nigerian economy and contributes to our purpose of improving lives for all while lifting global trade. Away from that, a federal high court in Abuja has frozen the bank accounts of 32 individuals and companies linked to the End Bad Governance protest and pending investigations and prosecution. Justice Emeka Nwete ruled on an ex parte motion filed by Ibrahim Muhammad, counsel for the Inspector General of Police. The ruling, dated August 20th and made public on Sunday, ordered the banks to freeze the accounts and apprehend any persons transacting with them. The accounts allegedly involve proceeds from unlawful activities, including criminal conspiracy, terrorism financing, treason, cyberbullying, and cyber stalking. The Inspector General of Police listed several respondents, including Palinho Global Service Limited and Obedient Movement Multi-Purpose Cooperative Society. According to an affidavit by Detective Gregory Waji, preliminary investigations revealed that the suspects were recruiting individuals to cause unrest and overthrow the government, with some foreign nationals implicated in promoting terrorism financing and treasonable activities. And to unpack this, we are joined by a legal practitioner, and that's Taiwo Ojumu. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me on the news.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Player.
All right, let me kick off by asking, first of all, what's your assessment of the move by the federal government to freeze the accounts of those linked to the End Bad Governance protests?
Yes, first and foremost, I must say that I think I've said this severally, and I'll say for the opting time, that the right to peaceful assembly, that is the right to protest, as well, is one granted by the Constitution. Section 40 of the Constitution spells that out clearly. Now, the thing is that that right is not absolute, of course. I mean, that right has its own limitations, and one of such limitations is that the fact that you have the right to peacefully assemble does not mean that you now use that, you now run foul of law by conspiring to commit a crime. But for me, I've said it. We don't know the full facts or the evidences that the federal government has. But if you ask me, people have the right to protest. But if you look at the allegations levied against the 30 persons, those allegations are very serious allegations. And so I feel that by the time the matter proceeds in court fully, we'll see. But I think people have the right to protest. People cannot be gagged, cannot be suppressed. It's a right that is guaranteed by the ground norm of law, that is the Constitution of Nigeria. So yes.
Just to come in there, talking about allegations now, what do you think are the legal implications for the persons or companies involved? I mean, how does this action align with the principle of due process and also the right to a fair trial?
Like I said, first and foremost, it is still in the realm of allegations. Anybody can institute an action or a criminal charge against anybody, but it is the court that will decide that. But what I always advise is that in this kind of instances, because Nigeria is not an autocratic society, Nigeria is not a military junta where the constitution is suspended. What I would advise, if you ask me now, is that persons, those suspects as well, those accused persons rather, should go and get some of the best human rights lawyers in Nigeria. Lawyers that have track records of integrity, and I think the coming days and weeks will unfold a whole lot. It has very serious and very severe legal implication, because, like I said earlier, it's barely an allegation, or it's merely allegations. It's only the court that will decide whether those allegations are true or not.
Well, we understand. Well, like you rightly possess, we understand these allegations, but then looking ahead, how might this court's order affect future protests and also the exercise of civil rights in Nigeria?
Like I said, I think on the part of the government, I think government is trying to do a whole lot to guard people, if you ask me, guard in the sense that, because these things, I mean, instances of things like this were only prominent during the military country. I will not, although, like I said earlier, I don't know the severity, don't know the veracity or otherwise of the evidence the government has. But if you ask me, why is it that those who protested were the only ones affected? These are many questions that that deserve some answers. Now, moving forward, I think in the future, this might intimidate people. People might think twice before going out to protest. Personally, I've said it several that people have the right to protest. I still said it earlier, but that right is not absolute. Of course, you cannot use your right to protest to now commit a crime. But this, like you asked, will affect protests in the future. People might become scared of protesting because of issues like this.
Okay, let me ask you, as a legal practitioner, do you see any level of accountability or transparency by the government in this case? Have we seen any public charges being made so far?
No. Beyond what we know already, beyond what we've read now, there's nothing yet we have seen. But like I said earlier, I think the best bet is let all the civil societies involved come up, make sure that the court proceedings are monitored on one hand. Then on the other hand, the accused persons involved to ensure that they get lawyers, human rights lawyers with track record of integrity, lawyers that will not compromise. These are many more are the only ways one can ensure that justice is done and that these people are not victimized.
Now, going forward, what would be your recommendation or advice to people willing to engage in demonstrations or protests in Nigeria?
Yes, my advice would be the same, like I've always advised. The right to protest is guaranteed 100% by the Constitution, so people can proceed on protesting. But your protest, that right is not absolute. Like I always say, your right to protest or your right ends where that of others begin. That is, if you must protest, you must do it within the bounds of the law. That's my advice.
All right, thank you so much. This is where we anchor it. Taiwo Ojumo, legal practitioner, many thanks for your insights. Thank you for staying tuned. The Director General of the World Trade Organization, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has advocated policy consistency in Nigeria, regardless of change from one administration to another. She made this known while delivering a keynote address titled "A Social Contract for Nigeria's Future" at the opening ceremony of the 2024 Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association on Sunday. The former finance minister decried a phenomenon she labeled as the not-in-my-administration syndrome in the governance, which she said has been responsible for the not-so-good economic performance of Nigeria. According to her, Nigeria needs a social contract that all Nigerians, regardless of political or other affiliations, should agree on. Away from that, the Kogi State chapter of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has called on the Ijumu Local Executive Committee to immediately begin suspension proceedings against Senator Dino Melayi after his public declaration that the party is dead. The party believes this action is necessary to restore its integrity and refocus on effective leadership. In a statement issued by party elders led by Alhaji Ibrahim Dansofo, they criticized Melayi for being a political liability whose ambitions have dwindled to the extent that he cannot even secure a local councillor position. They also accused him of hypocrisy, noting that despite his poor track record, he was still granted the governorship ticket. The Kogi PDP placed the blame for the party's current troubles on Malai's nomination and urged former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and Governor Ifeanyi Okowa to withdraw their support for him. And now to education matters, where the federal government says only 8 universities have been accredited to award degrees to Nigerians in Togo and Benin Republic. The minister also listed 5 accredited universities authorized to provide degree programs in Benin Republic for students from Nigeria. The minister said the revelation was part of a report submitted to the Federal Executive Council by a committee with mandates to probe degree certificate racketeering by foreign and local universities in Nigeria. And staying with education matters, the federal government says it stands with decision to void over 22,700 degree certificates obtained by Nigerians in some fake universities in neighboring Togo and Benin Republic. Now, according to Education Minister Dahir Maman, Nigerians who graduated from these illegal post-secondary institutions are damaging the country's reputation. He notes that as the authorities in the neighboring Francophone West African countries similarly deemed the affected schools to be fraudulent, the decision to nullify degrees credentials from unlawful colleges in the Benin Republic and Togo was not an overly punitive one. Recorded last year, an undercover journalist detailed how he acquired a degree from a university in Benin Republic under 2 months and in fact deployed for the National Youth Service Corps. And still staying with education matters, Nigeria's Education Minister Tahir Maman says underage candidates will no longer be allowed to sit for secondary school leaving examination. According to Maman, the West African Examinations Council, WAEC, which oversees the West African Senior School Certificates Examination, and the National Examination Council, NECO, which plans the Senior School Certificates Examination, have received instructions from the federal government to adhere to the requirement that candidates be at least 18 years old to be eligible for both examinations. He also insisted that the age limit for any candidates to write the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME, organized by the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, remained 18 years. In health, the National Association of Resident Doctors, NAD, has started a 7-day warning strike across all of its centers nationwide. The resident doctor strike is to clamor for the release of its kidnapped member, Dr. Ganias Adebola, who has been in captivity for over 8 months. In a statement, NAD President Dr. Dele Abdullahi said the strike will begin on Monday, August 26, 2024 at midnight. Abdullahi disclosed that the decision was made during the virtual emergency National Executive Council meeting held on Sunday, August 25, 2024. He warned the warning strike will last for 1 week and will be total as there will be no emergency care. And to talk about this, we're joined by Dr. Egbe John Jonah, Publicity and Social Secretary, National Association of Resident Doctors. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me. Are you there, Doctor? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Dr. Egbe is here.
Okay, let me kick off by asking what specific actions or responses is NAD hoping to achieve through this 7 days warning strike? And also, how does the association plan to escalate if their demands are not met?
Thank you very much for your kind question. We decided to embark on this 7-day warning strike as a result of the fact that our colleague who has been in captivity for the past 8 months is still in the kidnappers' den. Sometime in July, we had a meeting, a National Executive Council meeting in Katsina, where a communique was rolled out demanding her immediate release. Following that, we convoked a subsequent emergency meeting where we gave an ultimatum of 2 weeks. Now, upon expiration of the ultimatum, we will have to convoke another meeting which may necessitate a strike. That was what gave birth to this strike, because at the expiration of the state 2 weeks, nothing was done concerning the release of our colleague. All we demand for is the safe release of Dr. Gani Adebola, who has been in captivity for the past 8 months. A woman who probably have worn just one clothes for this period under the piercing sun and scorching sun and rain. We demand our release. We urge the federal government to rise up to this methodical challenge that is plaguing the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors. It is something that is so worrisome. That's why we had to take to this strike. We tend to escalate if nothing is done.
Okay. Now, aside this notice for strike, action, what other efforts has been made by the association to ensure the release of Dr. Gani Adebola? What efforts has been made so far?
The association has been in touch with several agencies. The Dr. Dele Abdullahi-led Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors have been everywhere. They've tried to establish contact with the Kaduna State government. They've established contact with the DSS, established contact with Nigeria, the Federal Ministry of Health, and then even the presidency. Those are efforts in place to ensure the safe release of our colleague. We have also been in touch with the family of the Dr. Galia. We've also been in touch with the hospital where she works, National Eye Center, Kaduna. So all hands are on deck towards ensuring our colleague is released.
You talked about you being in touch with the Kaduna State government. You also mentioned the DSS and also the Federal Ministry of Health. What has been their response while you made, while you reached out to them?
From the last meeting we had with the Federal Ministry of Health, the Federal Ministry of Health, if you read the newspaper some days ago, actually petitioned the Inspector General of Police to ensure that they do the needful. So from the part of the Federal Ministry of Health, they responded to our plea by also adding voice to our demand, ensuring the safe release of our colleague. The Kaduna State government had a meeting with the leadership of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors upon a time. Although that meeting was inconclusive, they were to reconvene some days ago, but something happened. So subsequently, we hope they are able to put together a meeting to forge a way forward.
Well, indeed, we hope these efforts yield fruition. Thank you so much for your time on the news. Dr. Adejuwon Jonah, Publicity and Social Secretary for NAD. Many thanks indeed.
Thank you very much.
It is a known fact that social media was instrumental to the just concluded #EndBadGovernance protests nationwide, where angry youths took to the road and street to vent their grievances and demanded a better Nigeria. Now, while it is unarguable that social media fast-tracks communication and promotes social development, a lot depends on its proper use. In this special report, News Central's Austin Azul takes a look at how young people can use social media platforms to enhance national development.
Over the last 2 decades, rapid progress has been made in the area of internet penetration and, by extension, the use of social media. This use of social media, mostly among the youth, have been on the rise due to the fact that social media has become an integral part of their daily activities.
Social media itself is not bad. It is the usage. Like as a pastor, I preach on the
truth of the matter is the world has become a global village with the advent of information technology, social media, ICT, and a whole lot of it.
The just concluded #EndBadGovernance protest in Nigeria was largely driven and achieved through the use of social media. The exercise, which started peacefully, later turned violent in some parts of the country, with reported killings, destructions of public and private property, and the hoisting of foreign flags, which many condemned. It is agreed that social media has significant impact on ensuring political development by providing an opportunity to create an environment where people can voice their opinions freely and also express their creativity. The question, however, is how can young people use the social media platforms to enhance national development?
The country is already balkanized across ethnic and religious lines, and our people should try to be able to preach peace, preach unity, preach development using the platform of social media.
We must always engage the social media in the right way.
Giving a verified information before posting it on the possible note, at least talking about bringing the positive part of it, you can be able to as well draw the attention of the government in promoting the development of our society today.
For the youth, social media platforms have opened numerous ways of profitability for them. To this end, the Senior Special Assistant to Delta State Government on Media organized this Delta Social Media Summit for young people to maximize their economic potentials, especially in the country's prevailing harsh economy.
Delta youth are talented, and we're trying to train their talent so that they can be professional in what they are doing. This what we're doing now is reducing the rate of unemployment in Nigeria.
Attendees of the one-day program shared their acquired knowledge.
I learned that in creating content, we should at least create content that will educate the people. Content that people will watch and learn something from.
I think youths can talk about the issues that bothers them, but talk about it constructively.
Today I've been sold that because of social media. Most of the things I do, I post them on social media, and it has helped me to achieve a lot.
As young people continue to leverage on the advantages of the social media, influencers and bloggers are reminded to be mindful of the contents they push out for consumption and its potential impact. In Asaba for News Central, Austin Azu.
The news continues in West Africa, where dozens of civilians have been killed and more than 100 injured in an attack by militants in Burkina Faso. According to multiple sources, the latest attack was carried out by armed men in the village of Basalogo, the country's north-central region. The victims were mainly young civilians who came out in large numbers to help the soldiers dig trenches around the town to protect themselves from possible attacks by armed terrorist groups. Jihadist rebels affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group have waged a grinding insurgency since 2015 in Burkina Faso that has killed thousands and displaced 2 million people. In East Africa, at least 60 people have been killed after a dam collapsed amid torrential rains in eastern Sudan. Now, many others are still missing after the foundering of the Arbat Dam, the site of a reservoir that is a major source of fresh water for the nearby Red Sea city of Port Sudan. The flooding has destroyed homes, swept away vehicles, and forced many to flee to higher ground. This is the latest tragedy in the North African nation that has been pushed into famine by more than a year-long civil war.
السد اتكسر وجا سيل ثقيل واخذ روالي وغارب 40 نفر شخصي. السيل شال وطلعنا جثث، في ناس هيين والحمد لله الناس كلهم اكثريتهم هيين. الوالي امبارح جانا الصباح جاء، وفي ناس في المنطقة اللي أنا منطقتي دي منطقة تتابوب دي اتصلنا له تلفون قالوا شال البيوت وشالوا أي حاجة.
In Southern Africa, according to the World Health Organization, 87.5 people per 100,000 of the population take their own life every year in Lesotho. These numbers are more than double in the next country on the list, Guyana in South America, where the figure is just more than 40. It is also almost 10 times the global average, which stands at 9 suicides per 100,000 people. Lesotho differs from many other countries in the gender breakdown of suicide rate. While nearly all countries report higher male suicide rate, Lesotho has a significantly higher female suicide rate. Neocentrist Bongani Ziba is in Lesotho, and she spoke to us on the grounds of this development.
As you can see, the Basotho are still going on with their businesses, but there is a challenge that many Basotho are facing here. It's not only Basotho's challenge, because looking at the statistics, I saw that 5 African countries are also on that statistics. Zimbabwe, Botswana, Eswatini is among the statistics that a high rate of suicide with 5 African countries shows that the number is big. But Basotho is topping that chart with the highest number of suicide cases. Have been going around here in Lesotho, trying to speak to the citizens just to understand what's going on, what is the challenges that they are really facing for them to be on that high, to have that rather high number of suicide. But I also spoke to the ombudsman, that is the public protector for Lesotho, this morning, just to speak about what exactly the challenges that they are going on, that the citizens are going through. Let's just take a listen to what she had to say.
End up now developing mental health issues, and hence why it has been at such an increase, and we are now experiencing a lot more suicidal cases. We have a lot of suicide cases in country. So that's basically the reason I want to believe why there's been such a huge increase in suicide in Lesotho.
Yes, we can hear what the ombudsman just spoke about, the challenges that the Lesotho people are facing. But this suicide issue is not only in Lesotho, like I've said, many African countries are facing this. The Basotho also, there is drought that is going on in this country. I was in one village yesterday where the people are sharing water with the animals, and also it's one of the stresses that they are going through, and also looking at their health system also, and also other challenges that they are facing. It's causing the Basotho people to be suicidal. But this problem, like the ombudsman just said, that this is a mental problem. And one thing that as African cultures, we shy away from talking about the mental health issues. So this is one of the challenges that the people here are also facing, just to sit down with someone else and speak about the challenges that you are going through, and just to relieve that stress that one will be going through. So one end up killing themselves, being suicidal. So these are some of the challenges that the Basotho people are having here in Lesotho, Joe.
In North Africa, Tunisian President Kais Saied has replaced various ministries, including that of the foreign and defense portfolios. The Tunisian presidency made this known in a statement posted on Facebook without explanation. The abrupt reshuffle replaced 19 ministers and 3 state secretaries who assisted ministers just days after Saied sacked the former prime minister. The move comes as a North African country prepares for presidential elections on October 6th. Saied's successor was democratically elected in 2019, but orchestrated a sweeping power grab in 2021. He is now seeking a second presidential term as part of what he has said was a war of liberation and self-determination, aiming to establish a new republic. Thank you for staying with us. Israel's military struck the Gaza Strip on Monday, a day after truce talks in Cairo coincided with a major but brief cross-border escalation involving Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Gaza war, triggered by Hamas' October 7 attack on Israel, has drawn in Tehran-aligned armed groups across the Middle East, repeatedly heightening fears of a broader regional conflagration. The latest flare-up between Israel and Hamas ally Hezbollah, the Lebanese group on Sunday launched rockets and drones in retaliation for a top commander's killing as Israel carried out air raids the military said thwarted a larger attack. Israel swiftly revoked a state of emergency declared early on Sunday, and Hezbollah said its operation was completed. And for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, can you tell us what's the latest from the region?
Absolutely. Well, in the region, in Palestine, actually, 7 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli military strikes today. So this is after that brief but very dangerous escalation that you mentioned that happened over the weekend. The focus now seems to be back in Palestine. Now, 2 were killed at Deir al-Bala. That's an area where you have about 1 million people sheltering at the moment, and where Israel has now issued an evacuation order, and 2 more were killed in a school at the As-Nuriyat camp, and that's in the southern city of Rafah near the border with Egypt. Now, so far, you have about 40,000 Palestinians that have been killed in the war. That's according to the Hamas-run health ministry. And of course, that count doesn't differentiate between Hamas fighters and civilians. Like I said, Israel has issued a new evacuation order for the Deir al-Bala in the central Gaza Strip region, which means more families are being forced to flee from that region. The evacuation orders so far in that region have displaced about 250,000 people. And also orders have been issued that families and patients must leave the Al-Aqsa hospital. That's the main medical facility in that Deir al-Bala area. And thousands of people have actually taken shelter there at the moment, and they're being forced to evacuate also.
Afia, in the light of all this, how close are we to full-scale escalation to all-out war across the Middle East region?
Well, if you'd asked me this question 24 hours ago, I probably would have said that we're very, very close to an all-out war in the region. But 24 hours later, it seems that things have calmed down somewhat. That nightmare scenario, as it were, seems to be fading for now. But the dynamics for a much bigger conflict and for a much bigger conflict to continue absolutely remain. We're at a standoff position at the moment. Both sides have been sending messages with rockets and bombs across the borders. And both Israel and Hezbollah have signals, because in 24 hours, this started and then stopped. That means that both sides have signaled that while they don't want a wider war, neither side wants to be seen to be weak, and they have to show these signs of strength. But it also shows that there's always room for error and miscalculation, because both sides are under immense pressure at the moment. Now, you have people behind Hezbollah's leader who are urging a more forceful response as Israel's assault on Gaza continues. And on the other side, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has some seriously loud voices in his ear telling him to launch a major operation against the Lebanese militant group to force Hezbollah back from the border and to allow tens of thousands of Israelis from that area to go home. So the consequences could be disastrous if either side continue in this escalation.
I mean, I wonder, how have both, Israel and Hezbollah reacted so far to the recent escalation on both sides?
Well, it's interesting that 24 hours after this flare-up happened, both Israel and Hezbollah have been calling for a de-escalation on both sides, and that's via their intermediaries, to prevent that full-scale war as we have been talking about. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, I quote, "This is not the end of the verse," after Israel launched those preemptive strikes into Hezbollah in Lebanon. And Hezbollah have said that its drones and hundreds of rockets that they sent were in response to the killing of one of their top commanders in the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Now, they're saying that they hit intelligence posts, and Israel saying that they hit important targets as well. But both sides are now saying through intermediaries that we need to temper it and we need to take it back a notch, because they don't want a full-scale war in the area, and neither side can really afford that in any way, shape, or form. And it's also worth remembering that peace talks are continuing in the region, in Cairo as well. And absolutely, in the background of those talks will be the fact that this escalation has happened.
All right, thank you so much for your perspective. Afia Hagen, our international correspondent. Many thanks, Afia. In business, The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, is scheduled to release Nigeria's GDP report for the second quarter of 2024 today. In the first quarter of 2024, the economy saw accelerated growth, primarily driven by the services sector, which grew by 4.32% and contributed 58.04% to the GDP. Year on year, the GDP for Q1 increased by 2.98%, surpassing the 2.31% growth from Q1 of 2023, but not reaching the 3.46% growth of Q4 for 2023. On the Business Edge show, Dr. Samson Simon, Chief Economist at ARC Economics and Data Limited, shared his insight on enhancing the manufacturing sector's contribution to the GDP. In sport, Nigeria's under-18 men and women's basketball teams have been drawn against familiar foes ahead of the FIBA Under-18 Afro-Basket Championship, a qualifier for the 2025 Under-19 World Cup, which will kick off on September 1st in South Africa. Nigeria's Under-18 men's team, aiming for their 8th title, faced Egypt, Angola, and Uganda in Group B. Coach Humphrey Fubara is confident in his squad's prospect after their strong performance in the Zone 3 Under-18 qualifiers in Abidjan. In the women's division, Nigeria is drawn in Group C with Egypt, Zimbabwe, and Uganda, following their dominant showing in the same qualifiers. Now, Group A features hosts South Africa, Tunisia, Cameroon, and Rwanda. Defending champions Mali will compete in Group B against Morocco, Zambia, and Angola. And that's all on the list. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. President Tinubu to inaugurate 178 billion naira on a terminal next week. Tunisia's President Kais Saied swears in newly appointed ministers. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.